Morning, good afternoon, good evening, my beautiful hot messes. My name is Mistress Lavender, and my hair's in a little ponytail. I did my little retwist, so I didn't feel like putting my bonnet on. But today I'm reading The 48 Laws of Power. I'm on page 23, part 2 of Law 3. Conceal your intentions. Before we begin, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and obviously turn your post notifications on. And yeah, let's begin. And make sure to follow me. I'm so serious. Thank you. Part 2. Use smoke screens to disguise your actions. Deception is always the best strategy, but the best deceptions require a screen of smoke to distract people's attention from your real purpose. The bland exterior, like the unreadable poker face, is often the best smoke screen. Hiding your intentions behind the comfortable and familiar, if you lead the sucker down the familiar path, he won't catch on when you lead him into a trap. Observance of the Law 1. In 1910, Mr. Sam Jezel of Chicago sold his warehouse business for close to $1 million. He settled down to semi-retirement of the managing of his many properties, but deep down inside, he itched for the old days of deal-making. One day, a young man named Joseph Well visited his office, wanting to buy an apartment he had up for sale. Giselle explained the terms. The price was $8,000, but he only required a down payment of $2,000. Wells said he would sleep on it, but he came back the next following day and offered to pay the full $8,000 in cash. If Giselle, I don't know how to say his name, could wait a couple days until a deal Well was working on came through, even semi-retirement, a clever businessman like Giselle is curious as to how Well would be able to come up with so much money, roughly $150,000 today, so quickly. Well realized reluctantly to say and quickly changed the subject, but Giselle was persistent. Finally, after assurances of confidentiality, Well told Giselle the following story. Well's uncle was a secretary to the coterie of a multimillionaire financiers. These wealthy gentlemen had purchased a hunting lounge in Michigan 10 years ago at a cheap price. They had not used the lodge for a few years, so they decided to sell it and had asked Well's uncle to get whatever he could for it. For good reasons of his own, the uncle had been nursing a grudge against the millionaires for years. This was his chance to get them back. He would sell the property for $35,000 to a set-up man, whom to Well's job to find. The financiers were too wealthy to worry about this low price. The set-up man would then turn around and sell the property again for the real price, around $155,000. The uncle Well and the third man would split the profits from the second sale. It was all legal and for a good cause. The uncle's just retribution. Giselle had heard enough. He wanted to be the setup buyer. Well was reluctant to involve him, but Giselle would not back down. The idea of a large profit plus little adventure had him champing at the bit. Well explained that Giselle would have to set up $35,000 in cash to bring the deal off. Giselle, a millionaire, said he could get the money with a snap of his fingers. Well finally relented and agreed to arrange a meeting between the uncle, Giselle, and the financiers in the town of Galesburg, Illinois. On the train ride to Galesburg, Giselle met the uncle, an impressive man with whom he avidly discussed business. Well also brought along a companion, a somewhat patchy man named George Gross. Well explained to Giselle that himself was a boxing trainer, that Gross was one of the promising prize fighters he trained, and that he had asked Gross to come along to make sure the fighter stayed in shape. For a promising fighter, Gross was unimpressive looking. He had gray hair and a beer belly, but Giselle was so excited about the deal that he didn't really think about the man's flabby appearance. Once in Galesburg, Whale and his uncle went off to fetch the financiers while Giselle waited in the hotel with Gross, who promptly put on his boxing trunks. As Giselle half-watched, Gross began to shadow box. Distracted as he was, Giselle ignored how badly the boxer wheezed after a few minutes of exercise. Although his style seemed real enough, an hour later, Well and his uncle reappeared with the financiers, an impressive, intimidating group of men, all wearing fancy suits. The meeting went well, and the financiers agreed to sell the lodge to Giselle, who had already had the $35,000 wired to the local bank. This minor business now settled, the financiers sat back in their chairs and began to banter about high finance, throwing out the name J.P. Morgan as if they knew the man. Finally, one of them noticed the boxer in the corner of the room. Well explaining what he was doing there, the financier countered that he too had a boxer in his entourage, who he named. Well laughed brazenly and explained that his man could easily knock out their man. Conversation escalated into an argument. In the heat of passion, Well challenged the men to a bet. The financiers eagerly agreed and left to get the men ready for the fight the next day. As soon as they had all left, the uncle yelled at Well right in front of Giselle. They did not have enough money to bet with, and once the financiers discovered this, the uncle would be fired. Well apologized for getting him in this mess, but he had a plan. He knew the other boxer well, and with a little bribe, they could fix the fight. But where would all the money come from for the fight? The uncle replied, without it, they were just as good as dead. Finally, Giselle heard enough. Unwilling to jeopardize his deal with any ill will, he offered his own $35,000 cash for part of the bet. Even if he lost that, he could wire for more money and still make a profit on the sale of the lodge. The uncle and the nephew thanked him. With their own $15,000 and Giselle's $35,000, they would manage to have enough for the bet. That evening, as Giselle watched the two boxers rehearse the fix in the hotel room, his mind reeled at the killing he was going to make.